In your opinion, who's the best fighter in the world? We can't put Tank up there in the top 10 in pound for pound. He has to be somewhere in pound for pound. And Canelo done something that is amazing when Canelo was able to go to light heavyweight and become light heavyweight champion. Something that I didn't even see him going up that heavy, and he did that. So, but as of right now, I have to put Terrence Crawford as number one.
What up, what up, what up? It's your boy, back again. Marlo Knows Basketball and Marlo Knows Boxing. Back at y'all with another one. It's a big debate in the boxing community right now. It's a huge debate. You know, we're closing out the year 2023, which was one of the greatest years in boxing history. And there's a huge debate over who is the fighter of the year. Who is the pound for pound best fighter in the year 2023? Is it Bud? Is it Terrence Bud Crawford? Or is it Naoya Inoue? I mean, it's really getting heated. It's a debate that's really getting heated in the boxing community. Is it Crawford or is it Inoue? Is it Crawford or is it Inoue? I feel like it shouldn't be a debate. I mean, there really is no debate here. And don't get me wrong, Inoue is a beast. He's a beast. He's a monster, but he's a small beast. He's a small beast. He's a big fish in a small pond. He's been fighting at the lower weight classes. You know what I'm saying? 120 something pounds. He hasn't even made it to junior lightweight yet. He hasn't even made it to 130. So like once you get to 130, 135, that's where you start submitting yourself as a pound for pound fighter. Like as far as being able to be considered number one pound for pound. You have to get up to those weight classes. There's not a lot of competition in those lower weight classes. He's destroying the competition, no doubt. But who is he fighting? The biggest name on Inoue's resume is Nonito Donaire. That's the biggest name on his resume. Nonito Donaire, he was cool. I mean, he was a good fighter. But was he ever top 10 pound for pound? Was he ever top 20 pound for pound? Was he ever like one of those guys that everybody in boxing was talking about? Like, look at this guy. Look at him. He's never been that guy. Like, Nonito Donaire is the biggest name on the resume, and he's never been that guy. Like, and you're putting Inoue's resume up against Crawford. He just beat a top 5 pound for pound fighter. And then a lot of people talk about, well, hey, he beat Stephen Fulton. Yeah, Stephen Fulton was cool. I mean, he was all right. He wasn't a top 20 pound for pound fighter, though. He was top 30 maybe. After Inoue beat him, now when you look at the rankings, when you look at Ring Magazine, they got him ranked top 50. They got him ranked at number 50. So he's barely top 50 right now. Barely. And you're putting this up against Crawford? Bud Crawford, after what he just did? That's crazy, man. I like Inoue, and I feel like he's a clear-cut number 2 to Crawford's number 1. But that's what he is. He's number 2. He ain't number 1. You gotta look at the fact that that Inoue is a 2-time undisputed champion, undisputed in 2 weight classes, and Bud Crawford is also undisputed in 2 weight classes, which are tougher weight classes than the weight classes that Inoue was undisputed in. Like, look at the 140. Look at the 140 pound division right now. Right now, it's full of sharks. Full of sharks. Bud Crawford dominated, cleared out the division, became undisputed in a division that right now is full of sharks. The divisions that Inoue is fighting in, those 120-something pound divisions, when have there ever been sharks in those divisions? The only 2 sharks that I remember, the only 3 that I can really name that were like elite fighters, like elite on pound for pound, like considered pound for pound. Prince Nassim, he fought at the lower weight classes. Marco Antonio Barrera and Manny Pacquiao. Those are the only ones. Like, you go all through history. You're not seeing a lot of fighters, all-time great fighters, being named from the below the 135 pound division. You're not seeing a lot of all-time great fighters being named when they're fighting below 135 pounds. It's not Inoue's fault. I mean, he was born the way he was born, but he's a big fish in a small pond. Bud is a big fish in a big pond. I mean, you can make an argument that there's not a lot of big names on Crawford's resume before he got to 147. In the 140-pound division when he became undisputed, I mean, there wasn't a lot of big names at that time. He did at the 135-pound division. He did beat Gamboa, who was a monster during that time. But when he came to 147, that's when he really cemented his legacy. That's when he really cemented his legacy and put name after name after name on that resume. And didn't just put name after name on the resume. He wasn't just beating them. He was destroying them. I mean, we all remember how Manny Pacquiao struggled against Jeff Horn. We all remember that. People want to say that Manny Pacquiao was robbed, but Jeff Horn put in a lot of work in that fight. When you watch that fight, you could see how it could possibly be scored for Jeff Horn. I had the fight scored a draw. It could have went either way, in my opinion. It could have went either way. Pacquiao definitely didn't do enough. Jeff Horn did a lot of damage. He muscled Pacquiao, moved him around, used his strength, used whatever means and tactics that he needed to use to get advantages. He was landing a lot of shots on Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao's face after the fight showed that. I mean, both fighters probably went to the hospital by the way that their faces looked. So that, I mean, you could say that was a controversial fight. You could say it was controversial. I feel like the fight could have went either way. But something that's not controversial is the fact that Bud Crawford completely annihilated Jeff Horn after he beat Manny Pacquiao. Completely annihilated him. There was no controversy in this fight. Terrence Crawford destroyed Jeff Horn. And made it look easy. Manny Pacquiao definitely didn't have an easy time. But Bud Crawford definitely did. Bud Crawford did whatever he wanted in that fight against Jeff Horn, just moving up to the 147-pound division, destroying the WBO champion who had just beat a legend. Jeff Horn had just beat a legend. These guys that Inoue is coming up to fight, like, who did they just beat? It wasn't nobody the caliber of no Manny Pacquiao. The fact that Bud Crawford made this fight look easy when Manny Pacquiao struggled, that's something to say right there. And then Bud Crawford moves on to Amir Khan, who, I mean, you could say whatever you want about Amir Khan, talk about his chin or whatever, but Amir Khan was a bigger name. He was a bigger name than Nonito Donaire or Stephen Fulton ever was. A bigger name than either one of them ever was. And Bud Crawford destroyed him too. Finished him easily. And you also go to Sean Porter. Showtime Sean Porter. Destroyed Showtime Sean Porter. Sean Porter had never been knocked out. Never been knocked out. He'd been knocked down, but he never really came close to being finished. I mean, we seen Spence drop him. We seen Adrian Broner drop him. We seen Ugas drop him unofficially. But he always jumped right back up and was game and ready to go. But when Bud dropped him, it was different. When Bud dropped him, it didn't touch his heart. It touched his father's heart. It touched his daddy's heart. His daddy had to jump up on the ring ropes and throw in the towel. He had to throw in the towel to save his son's life. He felt like his child's life was in danger. And this man never been hurt, never been knocked out, never been hurt to the point where he couldn't get up. Never. But his father felt like if he would have kept letting this fight go on, his son never would have been the same again. We see him doing this podcast and everything like that. He might not have had the mental capacity to even do what he's doing right now if his father didn't throw in the towel. Now, what fighter on Sean Porter's level has Inoue done this to? You could talk about Nonito Donaire and Stephen Fulton all you want. They were never as good as Sean Porter. Ever. Never. And of course, for the grand finale to shut down this entire debate, we got Errol the True Spence. Errol the True Spence. A guy that dominated Mikey Garcia. A guy that dominated Danny Garcia. A guy that dropped Sean Porter and beat him. A guy that destroyed Chris Algieri. A guy that destroyed and broke the orbital bone of Kell Brook. Kell Brook was never the same. Errol Spence was a monster. A lion. But Bud Crawford was the tiger. He destroyed another top 5 pound for pound fighter. Now tell me anybody that Inoue has beaten that it was ever in the top 10 pound for pound. Ever. Tell me. Tell me who Inoue beat that was on Errol Spence's level. That was talked about as much as Errol Spence. That was ranked as high as Errol Spence. That was revered as much as Errol Spence. A lot of people had Errol Spence number 1 boxer in the world at one point. Number 1. And Bud Crawford not only beat him, he made it look like it was a walk in the park. It was easy as cake the way he destroyed Errol Spence. That was one of the most dominant, greatest performances we ever seen in history. In history. Imagine destroying a top 5 pound for pound fighter like this. Like, this ain't no one punch, like I hit you with one punch and I knocked you out. This ain't no, I grinded it out to a decision. This is, I destroyed you from bell to bell. There was nothing Errol Spence could do. And he's a top 5 pound for pound fighter. Inoue has not put on a performance like this in his whole career. I'm sorry. He hasn't beat a fighter on this level. He hasn't even beat a fighter on Sean Porter's level for him to be considered over Bud Crawford. So what I'm saying is stop the nonsense, man. Stop the nonsense. We all know who number 1 pound for pound, and we all know who the fighter of the year is. So cut it out.
Naoya Inoue was considered the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world after his performance on Tuesday. Do you think he definitively put a stamp on you as the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world after this performance?
Without a doubt. You got Errol Spence was ranked number 4 in the pound-for-pound. And you got Terrence Crawford that was ranked number 1. You got 2 fighters that's in the top 5 pound-for-pound ratings. How can they not be number 1 pound-for-pound?